Ready? All right. This calls to order the February 24th Planning Commission meeting. First item of business is item 1A, approval of minutes from the meeting held on December 30th, 2024. This item was tabled because the participants in that meeting were not present at the last meeting. Is there any comments or discussion on the meeting minutes? If none, would someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Next
Just a
item.
note that I abstained from voting. I wasn't at that meeting, so I can't approve the minutes.
Same with me.
Okay.
Okay. Next item of business is item B, approval of minutes from meeting held January 27th, 2025. Is there any comments or discussion?
I'd make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the meeting held on January 27th.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Next item is item 2, old business. Item A, discussion regarding Fairway Municipal Code, Section 15-297, site design standards, green space requirement. We can discuss that. We could also table it to discuss at the end of the meeting, because I know there are some people here in attendance for the other item. It's up to you guys.
I think it's a good idea.
So a motion to do that, or just?
Make a motion that we table that discussion till the end of the meeting.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on to item 3A, new business, review 6136 Mission Road, conformity of Neil Peterson Park Master Plan to Comprehensive Plan as submitted by PJ Novak of Confluence on behalf of City of Fairway property owner. Basil, will you please, or is it your staff report, or?
Yes, I'll let the report stand as submitted with one correction. As far as staff recommendation, we recommend approval of compliance with the development plan. It's an error, it's not a site plan review. So that's a correction. And the site plan review will be submitted at a later date.
Okay.
And just to clarify, conformance with the comprehensive plan. And the goal, the applicable goal from the comprehensive plan is included in the staff report.
So Basil, have the landscape people met with the city and discussed what they're going to do, or is it, I mean?
Bryce is here. He's the director of Parks and Rec. He can answer that question.
I mean, you know, we can say, yeah, it conforms to the comprehensive plan, but is it what you guys want? I don't.
Yeah, so we've been working with Confluence with PJ, and so this is what we're wanting. This is kind of what we're thinking we would like. Obviously, they need some direction to make sure it meets the comprehensive plan to be able to move forward with their design to and start actually putting this stuff together to go out to bid. So that's kind of what we're looking for today. I will, a little backstory there. So the reason we're adding this, our kid camp has been, it's been full for basically 2 years straight, and we've had over 20 to 30 people on the waiting list. And so we don't have enough space indoors to be able to house all the children that want to be in the kid camp. So we are making this shelter area for the kid camp to be a home base for them during the summer. Kid camp usually happens between around 9 to 4 every day for the most part. We have a tennis and swim camp as well. So, but this will hopefully allow us to take away all our wait lists that we have now and serve the kids that want to be in part of this. The other thing too with this would be a rental component that it's kind of like our large shelter at Peterson Park, how we rent that during park hours only. And so that would be available for rent in the evenings up until, we close, obviously. Our pool house has been very popular with renting that for birthday parties. And so we think the outdoor space would be there as well for that. And even in the off season potentially as well, because our large shelter is rented by Fairway residents more than any other rental option that we have. This would be another option for them to rent. Now with the public restroom and everything close as well, that might be another amenity that residents could take advantage of.
So I guess the intent for us is to ask questions if we have any questions of how it relates to the comprehensive plan. Are we also to make comments if we just have questions on the site?
You can,
Okay.
but the goal tonight is just to make the finding that this does conform, these proposed public improvements will conform with the comprehensive plan for that area. And there will be a site plan later, for site plan review with more detail, and of course, you can ask questions at this point, but I don't know that, there might be a limited ability to answer.
Okay.
Just to be clear, the city is generally not subject to the zoning regulations except for the site plan requirement and the comprehensive review finding.
So any other questions for staff? Is there any questions on the site? No.
Are we allowed to speak questions?
Yeah, in just a second, we can ask for. Is there any questions for the architects here? Do we have questions for him?
Well, I guess if we're just asking if it conforms to the master plan, then specific questions, maybe that's inappropriate. I mean, I got a lot of questions, but I don't know if it matters to anybody, but no, I don't.
I guess one question I have, the size of the turf field, is that just a standard size, or what, is there a reason why we don't do more turf?
So we're only talking about the northernmost of the site plan that you have in front of you. So just the turf that's over where the grass berm is now. The other turf, the turf on the bottom side where like you guys would practice soccer, that's not being considered. So this is only the top section north of the pool. This is a phase 2 of what we have a phase 3 project going on right now. Phase 3 would be the turf field that's on the southeast corner of the lot, and that we're hoping might be as soon as 2026. But that's not for consideration. It's just the northern part.
But we're reviewing the whole plan, I guess.
For this specifically, no, we're only reviewing the northern side.
Okay.
Yep. This is just the comprehensive thing that Confluence put together that has the different 3 phases included in it. With the phase 1, the landscaping has already taken place.
Okay.
So just to clarify then, my understanding is we're essentially approving that this, call it intent schematics, that site plan is preserving and expanding public spaces and amenities within Fairway. Okay. It meets that goal objectively. Okay, thank you.
And that would be the requested finding as well, just that whether or not it conforms with the comprehensive plan.
Thank you.
So when it says pavilion space, open turf lawn area and games, what's the games?
I mean, we're just thinking like, the large checkerboard or something, cornhole or something like that. So where kids can play during the adult swim or whatever, they can go over there and hang out.
So it's not permanent, it's
No,
temporary?
for sure, no.
Okay. All right. We ready to open it up for comments? All right, if you'd like to state your name and address for the record, you may come address this.
Hi, I'm Kari Pekka. I am the homeowner. I live at 6115 Alhambra, the house closest to the pool. And I'm sorry, with my hearing, I haven't heard a word you're saying. Are you talking about the pool area?
Your house is,
Yeah. I just can't hear anything in the room, so.
your house is here and this is what.
I've been gone for 2 weeks, so I just got home and got the letter that we're gonna move the fence and build right up close to your house. So I'm here to find out what that actually means. I moved to Kansas 4 years ago to start a new chapter, and when I bought my house, it was insinuated from the other realtor that half of the property between my house and the pool fence was mine, is what they insinuated to me. And so that's a nice buffer, between me and the pool, which works out really great. So now my concern is if there's gonna be a rental shelter right up next to my new $35,000 landscaping in my backyard, you know, my privacy is shot. And I purposely purchased this house because there was that buffer between the pool, and the pool is great fun. I'm worried about my property values plummeting because no one's gonna buy a house now that has people renting a cabana thing till all hours. And so I have a lot of concerns about that. How far would the fence be brought in? I tried to get in earlier today, but I had to work. So my concern is how far is the fence going to be moved closer to my property? Those are my concerns. I'm
So
kind of-
unfortunately, we don't have a site plan that even shows that. I don't know if we have any other information, but we're not aware of that answer for you. We're just here today to discuss whether it aligns with the city's comprehensive plan, which talks about the desire and thoughts of the community, and what our goal is align this with that comprehensive plan. There will be a site plan review in the future, which would then actually address those dimensions, but I don't know if there's anything else we know. I don't know.
No, I mean, our intention is to do some kind of survey to establish where the property line is right now.
And the fence could land right on the property line, I believe. Or is there a setback for that?
Well, I mean, looking at Ames, I tried looking at it, I mean, it's not, the fence is recessed into the property, the pool fence. So the issue is, she has a fence, we don't know if it's recessed or that's the property line. So if her fence is recessed into her property, then there should be a property line established somewhere. I look back at the 2014, when there was development, there is a site plan, but not a true survey done on the project. So, I mean, pins were established or were found, but again, it was not a true survey. So it could be, I mean, for a site review, you have to do a survey, so. Whether we're gonna do a boundary survey, a full survey, that's gonna be determined.
So are you saying that would have to be done before this project could begin?
Well, it has to come to you guys as a site plan review. Part of a site plan is a survey needs to be done to establish the boundaries. So you can do a boundary survey, you can do a full survey, you can do a line survey. So we have to decide what we need to do.
Do we know when we anticipate to review the site plan?
We're hoping for next month at the latest.
So is there plans to get a survey done before that?
Well, that's what we'll have to discuss with Confluence.
Okay. I guess you can share your concerns with us. We don't know those dimensions because those haven't been presented to us either, so we can't make any decisions, but you're welcome to state your concerns and we can take those into consideration.
Well, part of my concern is now silly of me, I just sort of assumed that where this beautiful fence was is where it would always stay, and silly me. Yeah, and my property is the only one affected, so I'm the only one affected, so those are my concerns, that my privacy is gonna be completely invaded. I'm gonna have people there till all hours, and my property values are gonna go down. And I've put a lot of money into my house being a good fairway person, so I'm disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else has comments? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Tim Ackright. My address is 3611 East Vale Drive. And my concerns were on the park side, that apparently is phase 3, but regarding mostly the top field that was listed. No, the other part that was on there, so, yeah, but I'm here, so I figured I'd just talk about it like that first, even though it was presented that. So, as someone who's up at the park quite a bit and up at the playground, my biggest concern is that that is too small. And the fact that I know that, like, if you go to Indian Hills, their artificial field is surrounded, it's got like a 6-inch concrete wrap around it. If you do that, you have now put a concrete thing in the middle of a giant play field. And for like 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade soccer, they need bigger than that field. Kids playing football, and then just kids not even on sports teams, you're gonna have issues with, like, they like to play on the whole grass area. So there'd be, my concern would be with kids landing on that. Also, there's some trees being removed, but not the tree that's between the existing picnic shelter and where that would go in. There's that tree that drops those balls that stink and are gooey and stick to everything,
Yes.
which I think you'd make a lot of fans if you put that on the remove tree list, but also would ruin the field.
Yeah.
For landing there. And I guess my biggest thing is that it's, like, Prairie Village just put in they did their new playground. And they had several public meetings, they had an online vote about it. And I know ours just appeared a few years back. And this is another thing that if my dad didn't read stuff and then send me a text and say, look what they're doing in the park, I wouldn't have known about it. So it feels like, especially for when we get to phase 3, something that's gonna impact a lot of people, like outside of the pool, but year round, and just kids playing in the afternoon and stuff. I just feel like a sign at the park, like, hey, here's something coming, or, go to this website, more outreach to get input from people who are at the park all the time and using the park all the time would be great.
Sure, and we actually have a master plan process coming up. It's starting in March, at the end of March. We have our master plan process beginning for the whole year. So this is going to be part of that as well.
Okay.
So we have a whole year to lead up to this. I'll be putting in my budget for hopefully funds to be able to do this if it all goes through. And you're welcome to attend Park and Rec Committee meetings that you can add your input as well, or talk to your council rep
Yeah.
that's on my committee. But this is the initial stage. So this is just something that was put into place. Not necessarily this is what it's going to be, but that's what we had visioned that it might be. And it's not necessarily a sports field. I know it will be used that way, and I know our current park is used that way because the dirt patch that's in the middle would suggest that we have kids on there all the time. And so this is kind of hoping remedying not only the dirt patch, and allowing those probably, 3rd and lower to teams to practice, 2nd and lower maybe to practice. And then not only you with your child or something going out there and having fun, but having community events such as, our egg hunt out here, outdoor concerts, outdoor movies, potentially a skating rink on top of that in the winter. So this is not necessarily just a sports field for, like, when you compared it to Prairie Village, it's not going to be that.
Right.
So this is going to be more of a community space that's open to everything, not necessarily just sports. So
Yeah, no, I understand. Just putting the concrete strip in the middle of it sort of negates using the rest of it for, like, kids who are running around
Sure.
playing 500 or touch football, like, just after school and stuff.
Sure.
So that's where they get hurt enough as it is, but
Yeah.
throwing in some concrete in the middle doesn't make it a lot more fun for parents. So
sure.
just wanted to come and voice that. But will there be signage at the parks letting people know that there's this master plan process? They can
There'll
be a part of?
actually be part of our group that's working with the master plan that will be at the park throughout some events and even probably the pool season to garner that information that exactly you're talking about.
Okay.
We'll also have an online link that you can submit your input as well. So you should be seeing some of that coming out by April, I would think.
Okay.
We're having a kickoff meeting in late March.
Cool.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
That's it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Any discussion? Again, we're reviewing whether this aligns with the comprehensive plan.
Well, I would be interested to hear landscape architect's opinion on this lady's concern about where the property line really is and where the fence is and how much they're moving it toward her house and what the thinking is on that? Or is it too early to discuss that?
Will you please state your name and address for the record?
510 Walnut, Kansas City, Missouri, Suite 301, with Confluence. Ron, we're working through that. I think the improvements that we're trying to do in this phase is the open-air shelter, probably have a single pitch roof that would pitch from south to north, probably trying to replicate kind of the roof line that we have of the existing building. With that, so it's open air. We're talking about doing some type of solid fence along the northern property line, so there's no view in or out with that. Then we're also looking at doing some evergreen plantings on that side of the fence, so we can have kind of a double screening of that. And then
So the screening would be on the north side of the fence?
Yeah.
How far has that fence moved from where the existing fence is?
I don't have that number. I think Basil's right. I think we're going to need to at least get that northern property line verified, because what we're working on right now is a mixture of AIMS and a drone flight. With that, so we do need to tie that down so we know exactly where that is. And then inside, so there's not going to be any access to the shelter from outside the pool. You're going to have to come into the pool deck or in through the pool building to get access to the shelter. So it's not like it's open 24 hours a day for someone to come in and use with that. And then the synthetic turf that's inside there, again, is for use by the camp, use by the pool. So if there's, as Bryce said, whether there's it's adult swim and the kids have to do something, just an area that, the park is so small, it's just an area that would really, I think, give an opportunity to have a more forgiving surface for the pool goers when they're not in the pool, instead of the hot concrete with that. Also provides some additional shade, provides for the group of summer camp kids with that.
So the conjecture of could be parties in there all night long is not very likely. And if you've got a solid fence and some landscape screening, it seems like that would help to cut down some of the noise transmission.
That's what we try to do. I mean, I'm sure those are things that we need to work through the city. That's the intent, is to make sure that, I'm a Fairway resident. I don't want to see something like that happen to a neighbor, just trying to work out the best deal that we can for that. But yeah, it's not, Bryce, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not, you're going to have to come through the pool to get into the shelter. So it's not like the other two shelters in the park where you can park your car and come in and start using the facility.
Right. And if we did do off-season rentals, that's something where we could have a opening in the fence specifically for those rentals, would be access granted only to those rentals, just like a key fob that you would go in to City Hall if you rented the space back here. So it'd be only limited access. It would not be open to the public at all times. And then, correct, and the rentals or the use of this would only happen during park hours or pool hours. So depending on what those were, then all hours of the night, no. Currently, whatever the large shelter does, that's exactly what we would rent it for on with this new shelter.
Right. Do you have any comments about the other gentleman's concerns of, is there going to be a concrete?
I think we're so early with this right now. I mean, this is just more of a conceptual, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we're not that far in the game right now, because I don't even have funds budgeted for this on 2026. I'm still making my budget for it. So it's a little early to, I think, say exactly what it's going to be. So
These guys are out here etching it in stone now, so.
Well, there's, getting into details, I mean, there's two ways you can do it. You can put a concrete curb around. You can also do a hidden edge that has the grass that goes right up to the turf. It's a cost issue, and it's a long-term maintenance issue. The size of the field has never been designed, is never thought of to, have a certain grade level play on it. We've maximized the size that, given the slope and the existing facilities and the fence and everything, that we can actually turn into synthetic turf. So it's not a legal field. It's more of a pickup field. If you've got, like when my kids were little, I've got the kindergartners or the first graders out there thinking they can play soccer, and they're just, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on all that, but I could see the other man's point too of, the way it is now, kids kind of run that whole area, playing whatever kind of game they happen to be playing.
Yeah, I think the thing you have to look at as well is, right now, we've got, I wouldn't say it's an unsafe condition, but you've got poor turf because the park is overloved. And so I think there's probably just a balance of where do we want to have that balance of synthetic turf and, safer situation for the kids. I get it, with the concrete edge.
You mentioned, and you point out the slope, that makes sense, because I've been on that field many times with my soccer players, but is it gonna be like flat and then there's gonna be a drop off then to make up for that slope?
Just the reverse. We're thinking, initial indication from the grades we've got, we're thinking that you would actually have a stone seat wall that would be along the southwest corner up by the shelter, so it might be we'd have it, the turf field would be far enough away, so, if kids are running out, they're not gonna be up next to that. It has a nice place, Bryce mentioned movies, but just some nice little seating options just on the stone wall that allows us to get that grade, and then we'll probably have a little bit of slope off the turf as we go to the northeast, because we don't make that wall so high that it's a fall hazard, but we also just trying to find that the achievement of getting that as level as we can.
But we're getting too deep into the details here.
I guess I would say my just perspective is when you do fund that or try to ask for funds, I think the bigger the better I think the comments we've heard here, and then just my personal experience. I mean, if the whole thing could be turf, that would be nice, because yes, lots of dirt holes. The kids love to play in the dirt holes and not pay attention to soccer.
Different sports.
Any other questions for the landscape architect?
I got a quick question. So I think, maybe a suggestion, I think with the feedback I've heard from today, would it be possible for Confluence and Bryce, you guys to work together to put together like a milestone schedule showing the kind of the major deliverables, public interaction points, and then be able to like publish that through city social media and et cetera, to where people do know when that stuff's coming and when the interaction points will be?
For the master plan you're talking about?
For the master plan, and then the actual specifics of the design development of this park, like where we're going from a high level, more zeroed in, and the respective phases of that.
Yeah.
When the public interaction points would be.
So our Park and Rec Committee meetings are posted when they're open, so that we have been talking about this for quite some time. And the public is welcome to come, obviously. So we don't always have complete set agendas because there's different things that we have to get done, and depending on if we're able to get it through legal and through everything else, then whatever is there, we kind of take it all what we can and get it done. So we might not have specific topics, but we can get over, in general Park and Rec topics, we're always, welcome.
Yeah, I
to
think
that.
with a capital improvement like this, I mean, Parks and Rec in the city of Fairway, normally people would maybe show up with questions and comments on pools and other things, but with a capital improvement like this, I feel like it's probably worthwhile of additional notification to the public of like maybe PRing this up a little bit, that it's, hey, this is what's coming, get some excitement around it. Here's some interaction points. You can provide some influence on your thoughts, comments, addressed, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we can let them know that we have future projects coming up, and particularly in Peterson Park. And through our master plan, we'll identify more that are not only maybe 5 years down the road, but probably 25 years down the road. So that's kind of the whole plan of the master plan process, is because right now, these improvements are just what we've seen from being out there. So we have a kid camp that's bulging. We have a practice or teams that practice on this field all the time. And so these are identified things that we see every day that we're trying to check off the list to be able to provide for residents for those things. So now going forward with the master plan, our goal is to, again, with the success of Kathy's Park, the Pocket Park, and maybe adding future parks in the future, and having that kind of be more molded by the entire city as we move forward. But these are kind of identifying some areas that we see needs.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that we've been told that you need to do this, but we feel the pressure of having so many kids on the waiting list and not able to get in, and we get those phone calls. So that's what we're trying to do with this project on the north side.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for landscape architect?
Well, I just looking at this plan of that fence that's on the north side, it says extended fence line, so that kind of means to me you're not moving it, you're just making it longer? Or am I assuming too much?
No, so right now you kind of see it's kind of it comes to a not perfect triangle, but the apex of it comes out, and then it comes back down to the shelter, the shower building, and then it comes down to the southeast on the other side. So we would be flattening it out, and to make it straight across instead of like the triangle that it is now. You can kind of barely see the fence through that turf insert that you're looking at on the. Yeah, you can barely see it on there. But so that's what we're talking about. We're just extending it horizontally from east to west instead of having that little triangle butt out right now that we have.
Okay.
I guess one thing to note, it appears that the majority of that area is adjacent to the front of the house, of the adjacent property, whereas the back portion there's only a portion of the yard that would be adjacent to the new field, right?
Yeah.
Or is that maybe that's her property line that's aligned with the end of this field? I'm not entirely sure. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, that's where we need to have the survey done to make sure that where exactly that is. I mean, it's my understanding on this, so where the trees are at right now on that picture, that's our property, obviously. We wouldn't put those on there on a plan if we didn't think it was our property. That goes back to the east, so through that landscaping that's back there as well.
And quite often when we're in positions like this too, with a neighboring property, if it's agreeable to the owner that having some additional landscaping put on that property just to, even get some more screening with that is often done.
Yeah, I think that's my intent for the letter to the homeowners that abut us, that we're asking for your opinion and how we can work together through this. And I sent a letter to the one on the east side as well. I haven't heard back from them, but so just this is the process of how we're trying to create input for you to have your voice heard when we're doing these things. I will say this monument sign that is on the edge there, that's not happening. So just a heads up there, that's not going to be there, but there will be some landscaping there.
That's all my questions.
Thank you. All right, is there any discussion?
I guess my opinion is it looks to me like it conforms to the Fairway Master Plan.
Comprehensive plan?
What?
The Fairway Comprehensive Plan?
Comprehensive plan, I'm sorry. Not knowing any of the details, but overall, it seems like it's in line with comprehensive.
I agree with that. Sounds like there's a lot of details left to be worked out, and the appropriate time will come to discuss those.
All right, no other discussion? Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Based on the Fairway Comprehensive Plan, goal number 3, to preserve and expand public space and amenities within Fairway, I make a motion that we approve this initial confluence rendering with the understanding that there's going to be a site plan developed in the future.
Or second?
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, next item of business is item 2A, the old business discussion regarding Fairway Municipal Code, section 15-297, site design standards, green space requirement. So for those who were not in attendance last time, I hope you were able to read the minutes and see the discussion that had taken place. Some of the highlights that we came from that discussion were that many of the requests are for outdoor living areas and pools, whether some consideration could be made to reduce green space requirements related to outdoor living areas and pools, something to consider. We want to discuss whether permeable materials should be allowed to count as green space, whether consideration should be made to allow the area from the home to a walkway be considered green space even if it's less than 4 feet wide, whether a different percentage of green space should be applied to pools and permeable materials versus grass, and whether the regulations for discharge of sump pumps and drain spouts should be increased to 10 feet along side and rear property lines. That one wasn't necessarily related to green space, but we threw it in there because Basil had mentioned it was a concern. So those are the items to discuss. So it's open for discussion.
I guess kind of where I'm at on this is, I think the low-hanging fruit on this is the permeable materials. Where my head's at on it is, it makes sense, right? But to what percentage, right? There are probably some belt and suspenders on that. But the fact that we don't acknowledge permeable surfaces as being green space, I think that there should be some consideration for that, for designers to get creative and like running into these green space issues to say, well, we have this alternate solution, which still also addresses the green space, but also addresses the permeability and runoff, et cetera, et cetera. So I would be favoring some language that would modify that to allow for permeable surfaces.
What about taking a look at some of these, we consider them beneficial uses like a pool or permeable pavers? Instead of having an all or nothing, maybe we figure in like a 25% factor. So if you have a 100 square foot pool, not many would want a pool that small, but if you have a 100 square foot pool, 25% of that counts as green space. The same thing with permeable pavers. And that may allow us to hold hard and fast to our traditional green space requirements. It's more transparent, I think, than having somebody come in and say, well, you know, I know it's supposed to be this, but we've always approved up to, we approved up to 40, and so we're going to give you 40. So maybe this is just a way to kind of, it's a simple math equation. If I'm going to put in a 1,000 square foot pool, I know 25% of that's going to be considered green space. It doesn't have to be 25%. I'm just throwing a number out for discussion. So maybe that's a crazy idea. I don't know. I was just thinking about that, though.
I do like that and the fact that permeable surfaces have to be maintained. And so there's no guarantee that 100% of it's going to be maintained.
Yeah, it's kind of like tax policy. You're trying to encourage certain uses of this. So you have, okay, we're going to give you 25%. If it's 15%, I mean, you can go any way you want with it. But it may be something to consider.
Would we have to establish limits then on how much permeable area? Like if somebody comes in and says, I want to do my entire driveway and roundabout in the front yard in permeable materials, and so an extra 8,000 square feet, so I get 25% of it. Would we need to limit that so somebody doesn't get carried away on that?
Yeah, I think the second part I was going to mention was that I think that there should be consideration for lot size and how these rules apply. And I think on the smaller lots, it's probably a little more strict because there's the idea of putting a pool in and then doing 25%, whatever the percentage is. But the larger lots is really, from the metrics that we're seeing with the green space exceptions, it's mostly the lots that are over 10,000 square feet. So to your point, those lots, could you build an 8,000, whatever, yes. But we could craft some language and verbiage to maybe limit that to the lot size and then have some sort of cap on it.
I guess the other thing I wonder, are we making this too complicated? I mean, it seems to work the way we do it. It discourages people who aren't pretty serious about it, but people who are serious, and especially with the pools and landscaping in the backyards, if they come in and ask and it seems reasonable, we go along with it. We could write 10 pages of rules and somebody's going to pick it apart and find an exception in there that doesn't apply or over-apply it, and then we'd be stuck with something even worse than what we have now.
Yeah, that's probably true. What I worry about though is maintaining consistently how we apply the rules, meaning, you know, some commission, they come in and permeable pavers, whatever our exception, we say, okay, that's fine. But then another time somebody comes in and it's not applied fairly, but I don't know if that's a real concern, but it seems like if we leave it totally up to our discretion, kind of like how it is now, we seem to apply it fairly consistently, but I don't know if that is consistent over 5 years or 10 years, or maybe it doesn't need to. I'm not sure.
I mean, all it takes is one person to come and complain and argue why their neighbor doesn't need to exceed the requirements, and then that might be enough to convince us to hold the line, right? If someone speaks up, whereas if no one's here to argue that point, we generally are like, well, seems like a reasonable suggestion or proposal, okay. So I do agree, having a little bit more transparency would make it easier for us too, to approve or not approve if we had some better guidelines or more clear guidelines.
So, but I think in that scenario, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have, like, if I were to go, say, modify my green space requirements, do I have to provide notice to my neighbors? On new builds, maybe, but what about existing conditions?
Well, if planning commission is reviewing it, it's published, it's public.
Right? But is there any notice that go out to the neighbors to say, this is what's going on?
No, there
No.
aren't any notices. Only BZA, we have
Right.
the notices going out.
Right.
But if they happen to know about it,
Because you're right, that's a good point. We do ask them, have you discussed this with your neighbors? Are your neighbors are for this? And they've brought in letters or emails, et cetera. So,
yeah, I mean, well, it just takes a neighbor to show up and not agree with their next, maybe they have, sometimes neighbors don't get along, and so it might be just a point of contention, you know?
Yeah, and I don't think that this proposed addition of this percentage factor would result in a really lengthy section. I think we could just have a definition of green space. What is green space? And then define it. If it's grass, 100%. If it's a pool, it's 25%, something like that.
Well, what is the percentage that we've been allowing up till now? I can't even keep track of it. What if that just additional
Well, we're allowing
percentage?
60 right now.
What if that additional
And I think from
percentage?
the graph, I think there was one or two houses that were less than 10,000 that were granted an exception.
Could we-
So they were below the 60.
We could take that percentage and basically say that much could be permeable surface. And then that would be like the cutoff.
Well, my feeling, I mean, no matter what number you put, somebody's gonna come and seek an exception. So really, it's
True.
whatever you guys feel comfortable, because, yeah, you do the 25%, I'm in agreement with that. I'm sorta in agreement if you eliminate the 4-foot rule, that counts against you. But at some point, somebody will still come and say, because they're tailoring the pools to what they know they can get approved.
Yeah, and if we're at 60 now, and then we say, okay, we go 65, then they're gonna come in at 68, just to push the limit to see what they can get.
From a data standpoint, was there a reason that the pools were included as not permeable? Like, seems like they would hold water and let it out at a slower rate than, a concrete surface or, non-permeable surface. Is there a reason that they were included
Yeah,
at some
that
point?
I don't know. I mean, if that, because again, some of the members that been here for a while, I wasn't privy to the discussions in 15 and,
Well, I mean, if it's covered, right, outside of
in the winter,
summer,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not permeable.
so
And then
now-
at some point, it can't hold enough water, so.
Yeah.
So what happens to the water in a pool? Does it, when the pool gets too full, does it
it'll just start seeping.
does
Overflow.
is it just released into the environment, or does it go to
Yeah,
the,
just release it to the grassy area.
doesn't go back into the,
No, but I mean, if you think about it, what they're designing for infiltration trenches, I mean, the trenches we're seeing are less than the foot between the water line and the top of the deck for the pool. I mean, if you calculate that cubic feet of space that gonna fill with water, it's gonna take forever to fill that pool where it start overlapping to the decking.
But I also think we're trying to address a separate issue with the green space. I think the two I mean, water runoff is a big thing that we're trying to address with green space. But, I don't know, it's kind of two things. The intent of the green space, I think, is so that we don't have neighborhoods that are completely paved with, doesn't have the trees and the grass and all the things that represent what we want in the comprehensive plan or whatever that may be. I don't know that having outdoor living spaces and pools and things are in conflict with that concept, but the idea that we're trying to manage water runoff with requiring a certain amount of green space is not really the point of that rule, I don't think. I think it's a consideration. And I'm not entirely sure that this committee is the right committee to determine how to manage stormwater in the entire city, but, so I don't want to get confused with what we're trying to actually accomplish.
Yeah, I think the purpose of the green space, and the way I understand it, is it's based on detention, but also aesthetics. It's not just one or the other, it's both of them. I don't know how much of one versus the other it is, but I know it's kind of a balance.
Yeah, I think it was intentionally written that way. Back when they did it, there's a lot of discussion when I first got on this board about that.
And I'll just add too, sometimes these requirements are also to just increase some space between the neighbors. I mean, you've got setbacks, but when you've got, these kinds of green space requirements, that's kind of an add-on to try to make sure that that kind of space is available. And of course, it necessarily helps stormwater runoff when you have more permeable surfaces. But I did want to point out one part of the green space provisions that talks about, because I remember having some arguments about this, the permeable versus impermeable surface rule. And there's a line here that says remaining surfaces. All remaining minimum permeable and uncovered surfaces on residential lots shall be planted with vegetation. So I don't know, I mean, we can keep that there, but we've used that to say that, the pavers won't necessarily, even if they're permeable, that's not vegetation, so that's not gonna count. But we could make some clarifications if you do want to allow the permeable materials. Just wanted to make a comment about some of the existing language.
Wasn't there something that came before us at one point where there was like some patio pavers with grass between them? And we weren't counting that, even though they said they were like permeable and the grass between it was, but because there wasn't enough massing? That's where I'm going with it, is like there's a way to like accommodate that specific type of situation in like a backyard pool where it's like, okay, you can get there by doing something like this. Not in a
But I
driveway.
mean, are you counting the pavers permeable or just the area between it? Because the area between it's not very much.
Something on like Howe Drive where they came for us is like, there was like a checkerboard of
Yeah.
pavers and grass. And we didn't count it because it wasn't like enough massing of it. Maybe they're trying to do it on the driveway, I can't
I
remember.
think that one was more about the driveway rules, if I remember correctly.
I think, the driveway on Windsor,
Yeah, okay,
that was the one where they put the grassy area inside the driveway
Okay.
and said, well, that's when the 4-foot rule came into effect, saying anything less than 4 feet of grassy area or counts as a hardscape.
That was before, though. That was a long time ago.
It
You're
was.
thinking like recently, right?
well, I'm thinking about that, but then where I'm going with it is like, maybe there's some language that addresses that on primary elevation, so it's not done on a driveway, but you can do it in the rear. Be an idea, just an idea.
One of the problems with that, though, I mean, yeah, I remember that being discussed, but they normally recommend you put those pavers that are like a checkerboard, that are 50% open, they put it over a compacted gravel fill, so which kind of defeats your permeability when you do that. So, no easy answer.
Yeah.
Well, is this something that we could table for like a few months and just kind of ponder it and then maybe revisit it? 'Cause I think, I mean, it's good discussion, but we're not gonna solve it tonight or next week, so.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think that we even need to continue it to a date certain at this point. Any specific change? Want to bring it back up? In the meantime, that we could provide might be helpful, but yeah, it could just be on your own initiative whenever you're ready to start talking about it again.
Does Prairie Village or Mission Hills allow permeable surfaces? Do you know?
I don't know about Prairie Village, Mission Hills does not. Green space is great.
Do you know, this is a general question for anybody, council included, do you know if those cities that allow permeable surfaces define what a permeable surface is? I don't know if there's different factors or of permeability, or is it like a binary, it's either permeable or it's not permeable, or is it 20%, or how that works? I'm not
I don't
technical.
know. The only ones I know are Fairway and Mission Hills that both talk about being are able to support vegetation.
Well, you have permeable concrete. I mean, you see that done quite a bit on parking lots, on commercial. But how well it works after 5, 6 years, that's something.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of jobs that were done here. I mean, it became popular in Kansas City, Missouri, and other municipalities.
Wait till they come through and seal it after 5 years.
No, I mean, you get the dirt and the
Yeah.
lot of other stuff, debris, leaves will deteriorate and go into the permeable concrete, so.
Not to muddy the waters even further, but I think just recalling some discussions around like the geo blocks, I think are what they call some of the things that allow grass to grow through them and that you can drive over. I've heard that they don't necessarily, I think some of the concerns around allowing those were that they don't really allow plant growth or that they make it difficult. I don't know, I'm speaking completely without experience, just from memory. But I think there were concerns about whether they actually do allow for growth.
Okay, well, is there any other comments, or are we okay with just,
You need a motion for that?
no? Okay. So yeah, if there's no other comments, then we'll just end this discussion for now. And we can always bring it back up if we have a bright idea.
It's been a while since we've got a green space requirement, I think, several months.
It was October, was it? We had one in October.
I'm sure they'll pop back up in the summertime when people want a pool.
We did have one about 2 months ago. That spa on Cherokee Circle. They
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
60 square feet.
Yeah, that was a small one.
Do we have, assume we have applications for the next meeting?
Not yet, the deadline is Friday. Maybe one application, but we haven't received anything yet.
Okay. All right, item 4, next meeting date is March 31st, 2025. And then is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Hey Basil, that